Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call the general purposes meeting to order. Councillor Goanders is coming in virtually for some personal reasons. So may we have a motion to allow her to join virtually? Second. All those in favor, opposed, carried. Motion on the minutes? Second. Discussion, all those in favor, opposed, carried. First item is the West Richmond Pavilion, the character design. Martin Jonas, Mandy Baines, anything to add to your report?
To the chair, nothing to add, but happy to answer any questions.
Any comments, questions? Councillor Day. Oh, sorry, I got it turned on, don't I?
Thank you very much for the report. Being the liaison to the West Richmond Community Center, I have to tell you how incredibly excited they are about this project. And they couldn't thank us enough for all the extras that we put in. I know Councillor McNulty was made a number of motions to add stuff, and they're absolutely thrilled with it. I did have a question, though. It's not going to start till Q1 of 2026 and complete in Q4 of 2027, which will unfortunately miss the FIFA World Cup and some of the events that are going to be happening there. Is there any chance of having it start a little sooner?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, once council adopt the character, we need to start detailed design. And we can try to push the detailed design, but it does need a minimum of 6 to 8 months to complete. And then we have a construction window of about 12 to 14 months. So it would be very difficult for us not to meet those dates. But we should be finalizing the building by the end of 2027.
Okay, so I understand. It's not them asking, it's me asking, by the way, because I just looked at the viewing platform in GP 17, and wouldn't it be something if even just the unfinished section was open? But okay, thank you for that.
Sorry, thanks. Just a few comments and then a question. Yeah, previously I didn't support the original part of the project, which was the site location. But I did approve back then the kind of concept of the field house pavilion. And I was sorry to see loss of very valuable trees in the park that provide a lot of shade and all the other benefits that mature trees do. However, I like this concept design. My question is in regards to the access to the second floor viewing deck. So it does say that there's controlled access. And if I look at the pictures provided, one of the staircases up looks like it's enclosed within the glass walls, and then another one shows that it is not. So I'm just curious, how would you close off the staircase that's not within the glass doors?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we will be putting a gate, and it'll be controlled access to the building from the inside and out. If the building is not operational, this door will be locked, and the other one will be locked as well. From the main entrance, there's an elevator and a staircase. And from the outside, there's only a staircase. On the outside staircase, there will be a lock. There will put a gate at the staircase to prevent anybody from going on the deck.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much for the design. I guess we're looking at the design only today, but just out of curiosity, what's the cost to date to bring it to the stage? How much have we spent of the $14 million budget?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, the budget is $19.85 million.
Oh, 19.85.
That is correct.
Oh, it went up from 14. Okay.
And we have started only concept design, and that's almost approximately $200,000 with our work. Once we start with detailed design, then we will start accumulating costs.
Okay. Good. Just a question on the overhangs in the open space. Are they big enough, given the direction the winds are coming at Hugh Boyd if they come in the rain?
Through the chair to Councilor McNulty, so we have different overhangs at different sides of the building. On the north side, there's a 12-foot overhang. On the west side, there's a 5-foot overhang, and on the east side, there's an 8-foot overhang. The height of the building is approximately 28 feet. We've done wind studies, and we have confirmed that most of the time that most of the wind comes northwest. Hence, these areas will be protected as much as possible. So we do have coverage, and we will look at detailed design if we can extend it or not.
Okay. Just thanks for that. In the future, it was my understanding when we started this, and the Rotary Club actually started this way back when it started, that this was going to be a community building. We don't talk too much about community. It almost seems like it's only a soccer facility. And that's coming across loud and clear. And I think we need to change that because it is a community building. Soccer does not own it. And that's my point. I mean, we hear Carol Day's comments. The community is excited. I expect that there will be meeting spaces there for people. People can use it. There will be programming there. I guess my question on it, and you made some comments on page 13, which is good. They're good comments, is how the community and sport interact. I think that's going to have to be something that's going to have to be discussed as we go on because, as I say, sitting on the sidelines, watching this evolve, that's how I perceive it as well as the community. So the other question is how much usable space other than the change rooms, which are on the outside locker, is on the bottom floor. I may be getting ahead of myself here. We know the second floor is all community space, kitchen, et cetera. But is there any meeting space on the bottom floor? What's left, if you wish, once you put the various rooms in?
Through the chair to Councilman McNulty, the first floor is more functional. It has washrooms and change rooms and referee rooms and a concession. The meeting rooms and the multipurpose rooms are on the second floor.
So there's nothing on the bottom 5,000 square feet, really?
Through the chair to Councillor McNulty, if I could add the 8 change rooms on the main level. 4 of them are flexible team rooms, so they're dry rooms that can be used for alternate uses, whether that be training or meeting rooms or warm-ups. So that space is intended to be flexible.
So they're flexible for the community use?
That's correct.
I could have a meeting there
Correct.
and rent it out when it's not being used. Well, that's great. I'm glad we're moving along that way because I think it's important to, this will be the last facility we built like this for quite some time for sports. So I think it's good. Okay, but I really stress that this is a community building. Okay, we changed the name, the West Richmond Pavilion. There was a reason for that. And I hope council members take that under advisement.
Councillor Heath.
Just for clarification, the community center is not going anywhere. It's right there.
Right.
Correct?
That is correct.
We're not doing anything with it. So we have the community center here. Originally, we were talking about a field house. And soccer is probably the primary sport here in Richmond. And I think it should cater somehow to that type of team environment sports facility. So I'm just going to take a bit of a counter position than you on this, Councillor McNulty, is this is a sport field house building. I think it's a great design. It's a great build. It's a good concept. And let's not confuse this with a community center because the community center is well utilized as Councillor Day talks about. The community loves it. The community around that area is going to love this as a sports facility building. And I think we've got to make sure we don't confuse the people in Richmond of what we're building here versus a community center.
Okay. All right. Was there something more?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on when we passed this, this was to be a community building right from day one, just for Councillor Heath's end of Edison.
Yeah.
To be used by all members of the community in Richmond.
Yeah, but it's not a community center. I mean, a community center is a specific thing. This one will have some meeting rooms that they can use. Okay, so may I have a motion? Moved and seconded. Further discussion, all those in favor, post carried. Brings us to the referral response for accepted forms of payment. Is it Katie Furba? Did you want to add to your report?
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add. I'm available for questions.
So there's the 3 options, and what you're suggesting is we would adhere to the Cullen Commission and how they recommended, or what they recommend.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. In addition, option 1 also includes the recommendation that the city apply to become a member of the Counter Illicit Finance Alliance of BC. This would give us better data and intelligence regarding financial crimes in Richmond to help us with enforcement activity and to understand the extent of the issues locally.
Okay. Councillor Heed.
Yes, I've had discussion with staff with respect to this coming forward, and I don't disagree with sending whatever we can with respect to FinTrack, Cullen Commission, CRA, whatever we can. But the intent of this motion was to do things that we could do as a local government. I'm going to make a referral to refer this back to staff based on what the intent of that referral was and how we could. Now, there's a bit of that discussed in option 2. Option 1, we should be doing it by the very nature of trying to deal with all organized crime, financial crime activities in Richmond. And I agree, and Ms. Furland has done a good job of identifying that at that high level so we can get, mind you, the province, it's up to them whether they want to implement any of the recommendations of the Cullen Commission, and it's at the behest of them. And, whether they want to politicize it or not, we'll wait and see, but it may not necessarily happen. But I'm talking about these things at the level, the local level, where we could make a difference and encourage the activity, whether it's tax evasion or more or less tax avoidance, with respect to some of the businesses. I'm not saying all of the businesses in Richmond, because many of the businesses already have alternative ways to pay rather than cash, and I think that is a responsible business. But when you have a restaurant that's lined up with people at lunchtime, and there's a big sign up front saying cash only, it's a concern to me. I'm saying that we should not go after the small businesses that are trying to make ends meet, the farmers market people, and those types of businesses. I'm looking for those ones that are specifically, and let's not hide behind the fact that there are businesses here in Richmond that are avoiding taxes, whether you want to call it tax evasion or tax avoidance. When you look at the uneven playing field that's created when people don't have to pay their taxes, when you look at the reduced funding available to governments because of this, and it's in excess of $65 billion a year across this nation of people that are avoiding paying taxes through their businesses. And when you look at the public trust point of this too, is people know, and I'll tell you, you can talk to anyone, they'll know if they go to a restaurant and they have to pay cash only, and it's a restaurant that's doing a good business, people will tell you. I'm kind of embarrassed to do it. Sometimes I pay tax, sometimes I don't, but there is tax avoidance going on. So all I'm looking for, and Ms. Furland talks about that in option 2, is that we look at it. We don't go out and hire more staff for Mr. Corrado to come in and do it. We do it on a complaint basis. We're not going after, every single thing. If that's the way enforcement was, police officers wouldn't make it 2 blocks from the police station. They've got to enforce every rule. I'm saying let's do what we can as a local government in order for us to deal with this situation. We have an obligation. And if we don't want to, and, we want to leave it up to, the higher levels of government to deal with things at the lower level, which we have some say in it, I'm very concerned about it. So I just wanted to make those broad comments, because if you want me to go through the report, page by page, there's certain comments that I have with respect to it. But, I've talked to our CAO, I've talked to the General Manager of Finance, I've talked to Ms. Furland about this. I'd prefer to refer this back so the intent of the referral originally is actually addressed.
Well, I'd like to know if cash is the problem in these places, but you're not outlawing cash. Like in City Hall, cash was the problem. And we said,
Alternative methods.
We'll only take a check. So how are you solving the problem that stems from cash when you'll still take cash?
Well, you can still take cash. In that, if you recall, when we were looking at this, we were looking at a charter argument with respect to whether we could do this or not. There has to be an alternative method available to people, and I think we have the power within our bylaws to have that, whether it's a check, Mayor, whether it's a credit card, whether it's a debit card or something of that nature, whether it's Bitcoin or something of that nature. I seriously think that
Bitcoin.
you get my point.
Well, with respect, I get your point, but I don't agree with it at all.
You don't have to.
Well, I never said there was a law here. If cash is the problem and CRA is monitoring tax avoidance, what are we doing? All you're doing is you're making the businesses set up some kind of an alternative, which is going to cost them money.
They're making money anyhow.
Well, I mean, every business
I
makes
could go-
money.
I could go
Is that
in-
what you're saying? Come on.
I gave you an example. One restaurant, you go there anytime at lunch, it's lined up,
Yeah.
lined up. It's got a
Wow.
big sign there, cash only.
And how do you know what they declared to the CRA? How do you know?
I don't. Maybe we should look into it and see what they do. Maybe we should run a project on these things and see what they do to see how in-depth the tax evasion or tax avoidance is in this city.
We're talking about.
Pardon me, I don't need the catcalls from you, okay, Counselor?
Counselor, you're talking about specific businesses without any notion or any assurance that there is anything untoward going on.
Oh,
You're
come
wanting-
on.
Well, okay, you say it's common sense, but how can you say some business is doing great guns without knowing about it? How do you know this?
Let me give you an example. The other day, my daughter wanted a drink. Stopped at a store, gave her my credit card to go in and get a drink. She comes out, she says, it's cash only. Cash only.
Okay.
I go back in with my credit card and said, I want that juice for my daughter. He says, cash. I said, I have a credit card. Okay, you can use a credit card. Like, what the hell is that? Is that a responsible business? No, it's not. Anyhow, I've said my piece. I said my comments. If I have to go through this whole thing
Well,
page by
I just-
page, I will.
I don't see any reason to saddle every single business in this city with the obligation to have some other form of payment when, first of all, it's CRA that should be monitoring it, and secondly, we're imposing further charges on them. That's the extent of it.
Well, let's give them a tax break, take a percentage off their tax if
Okay,
we want them to do it this way.
all right, Counselor Day.
Well, I was on vacation a little while back, and I had to pay for zip lining. And they had a little tiny chip, they called it a square, which it says right here, you set up in minutes. This is not a complicated thing. Everybody seems to pay everything online these days. So I don't think that is so forbiddable that any business couldn't go get their little square thing and accept payments. So, but I'm looking at all three options, and I like all three. I like option one, which is to join a member of the Anti-Laundering Commission. I like option two, which is making sure that we have a minimum of 2 payments. And I like option three, which is education, education, education. So I'm wondering if we can't approve all 3 options, because when it gets right down to it, that would make the city more accessible from a business perspective, safer from an anti-fraud perspective, and it gives us a seat at the table for the new commission that we're at, the Anti-Money Laundering Commission. So from my perspective, this is a great report. I learned a lot from it, and I'd like to move all 3.
Just before I go to Councilor McNulty, those little chips, there's a cost to that. It may be easy to set up, but there's a significant cost to it.
The zipline people were really not stressed by it. They loved it because the money goes straight into their account.
The people may like it, the merchants may not, because it costs them money. Councilor McNulty.
Just quickly, it's a good report, a good summary and everything. I'd just like to, we can be talking about this for all day. So I'd like to know the nature of the referral, to see it on the floor. So if there is a referral, so we could deal with a
There's no
specific issue.
referral yet.
Well, I'm asking for the nature of the referral so I could
due course, you'll get the
understand.
referral.
Well, I thought he would make it because we're going to talk about this for till 6 o'clock tonight and we're going to get nowhere because we know the issues. Staff have brought us a report. We've got it in front, we can make a decision or we can refer it back. But by referring it back, we have 3 options to refer it back. So let's see what the nature of the referral is first. And maybe we can solve the issue that's in the problem because everybody has their own point of view.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, thanks for the report. It's a tricky topic. I don't have any doubt that there are some businesses that take cash and there's some tax avoidance in there, no doubt about that whatsoever. But interestingly, I've also been to some businesses and you go to pay and they say no cash, so you have to just use your credit card or your debit card. So it can swing both ways. That one, I doubt if there's quite the same issue with tax avoidance where it exists. But the part of the report that I found quite interesting was the Chamber of Commerce's comments. And I talked to a few private business people, small business owners myself. And the issue they have isn't whether or not they have 2 forms of payment or not. Some of them do. Most do, actually. But their issue was that's up to them to decide. And they want to make that decision themselves. So for me, educating businesses, acting on complaints when we get them is all very important. And I'll just ask this one question, and I'll see what the referral is, when it's made. But the one question I have, and it was commented on by Councillor Heed, in a roundabout way anyway, was when we get a complaint from a citizen, can staff just comment on, whether or not we act on that in any way, shape, or form, whether we totally ignore it and it goes into the round file? Because my understanding is that we do act on those complaints where we can, to the extent our resources allow us to, and bring in the stakeholders necessary depending on what's uncovered.
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, when it comes to tax avoidance, if a member of the public is concerned that a business is conducting tax fraud or not paying their taxes, the CRA does have a LEADS program. And so they will receive all complaints of tax evasion or tax fraud as long as it's accompanied with enough information for them to evaluate. So that's within the realm of the CRA. In terms of the city's role in bylaw enforcement, in this realm, I'd defer to my colleague, Mr. Corrado from bylaws, but I would say that typically there needs to be a city bylaw that's being contravened.
Yeah, and that's okay, Mr. Corrado. I don't need to answer that one. Just one follow-up question with that regard, and it's more of a legal question, I guess. I'm not certain whether this is in our lane as far as we could have a bylaw, but how enforceable is it? And I wouldn't mind if there is a referral, having a little bit more analysis in terms of how you do that, because if we require businesses to do a certain thing, there is a cost to it. And not all businesses are going to want to do it. So how enforceable is it? Is it within our jurisdiction, so to speak, or is it beyond our purview as a city? But I'll wait for that, perhaps, if there is a referral. Thank you.
Councillor Heed. I'm sorry, Councillor Al.
Yes, well, thank you for the report. I think this is very informative. And I have a problem with the assumption that any business just accepting cash is being suspected to be engaging in some kind of irregular activities. I have a problem with that kind of assumption. And we know that right now, if there's a complaint to the authorities, actions will be taken. Now, I want to ask staff a question. From our records, do we know how many people complain the city regarding cash-only business? Of course, we don't know how many people complain to the RCA, right? CRA. But do we receive complaints about business accepting cash only?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, I'm not sure. I would lean on my colleagues to provide that information, but I would say if it's a complaint about a financial crime, those complaints would be forwarded to the entities responsible for enforcing those financial regulations. So that would be the CRA or the FinTrack. Perhaps Mr. Corrado can help me out.
Through your worship to Councillor Au, I'm not aware of any complaints regarding cash-only businesses, no referrals from the CRA or any other law enforcement agencies at this time.
Okay, so basically, you did not receive any complaints.
Through your worship to Councillor Au, that's correct.
And I also have the concern that you say we have to use machines to conduct business. There's a cost. And I think it's very inappropriate in this kind of economic environment. I know that business are struggling, and in some cases, the profit margins less than 3 to 5%. And the cost of using those machines could be 3 to 5%. So in other words, if we force business to use a machine with the cost, actually, that can eat up whatever profit they can make. So I think that would be a burden to the business.
All right, Councillor Galanders has a point.
Thank you, Your Worship. I found the report interesting as well, and I also appreciated all the stuff about the Cullen Commission and the potential government solutions in option 1. I understand it didn't address, option 1 doesn't address what Councillor Heed is saying was the original intent of the motion. However, it says in here, and this confirms something that I've known for a while and worked on previously before I was on council, was that the largest tax evasion and money laundering industry is probably through residential construction. So even if we brought in option 2 and required the multiple forms of payments, that doesn't stop a contractor from going to the bank and taking out $10,000 a day to pay workers that aren't on payroll, et cetera. And that's, why I had pushed the province to look at doing unexplained wealth orders and investigating financial transactions such as money laundering on farmland, because those are gigantic mansions. And this isn't going to address that. And my other concern is that if you only required a business to carry more than one form of payment, they could just do debit and credit, for example, and then not allow cash, just as Councillor Hobbs was saying, which is also discriminatory towards people that don't have bank accounts. So it doesn't, option 2 doesn't fully address the issue. And about the square machines, if any business is really savvy and they want to attract business, they're going to use the square machine. I mean, even our lacrosse team for our concession stand has the square machine because they know that people don't carry cash anymore as much as they used to, and they're going to sell a lot more coffees if they allow the square. So it seems to be an expense that most businesses would prefer to use and take the risk of having that extra cost to get them more business. I would support a referral back, but I also think that doing option 1 is a good idea. And if referring back the option 2 idea to narrow it down more to what local government can do to address not just cash only business, but how it relates to tax evasion and money laundering, then let's see if there's more that we can do. But I would be concerned about businesses just choosing to use debit and credit and not allowing cash, just as much as the other way around. And I don't think that it does address the main issue of tax evasion. So,
Councillor Day.
Well, my extensive research while sitting at the table here, the little square reader costs $69. So I wouldn't say that's a particularly high expense.
Well, that's to buy it, but then there's a transaction charge each time.
Well, again, maybe we need to refer it back to get information on exactly what the charge is. But a lot of people use Interact, a lot of people use credit cards. It's very few people carry cash anymore. So if it would make everyone at the table more comfortable to send this back and get more answers, I can support that. I can also support all 3 motions at once.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Your Worship. I support option number 1. I think that it's a really good idea. We should be part of the system that supports anti-money laundering, that supports getting together, sharing whatever information that we have. As a municipality, I think there are certain things that are our job. This isn't necessarily one of it. I know FinTrack and RCMP do a lot of it, and I know they're hiring. I do recall we had a discussion about how, you know, bean counters are very nitpicky and everything else, and how unimportant they were. But so suddenly, when we're talking about anti-money laundering, suddenly we all want to be one. We want the city to become one. I don't think that that's our role here. It occurs to me that I've been at some Metro meetings recently, and Metro, the scope keeps creeping, what Metro thinks it should be doing. And we're sitting here now talking about our own scope that should creeping. This isn't our bailiwick. This isn't what we should be doing. We should be ensuring that businesses are following the bylaws, that they're not parking in the wrong spots, that they're delivering what they're supposed to be delivering. When it comes to our attention that they're contravening health codes or other things, that's when we should be shutting them down and pulling their business licenses if they're actually caught doing something wrong. But I don't think it's our job to be doing extra levels of policing that aren't actually ours. I think if it comes to our attention, of course, we follow it up, but we're not the CRA. The CRA has plenty of people working for them to do. I think what is important if you are paying for something in cash is to ask for a receipt, because then they have to ring it in. At some point, many of these businesses get audited. They have to provide their receipts. They have to show their ticker tapes from their tills. They have to have it all reconcile at the end of the day, and they have to have it all match up. And if they don't, that's when the CRA jumps in and starts charging them all kinds of fees, penalties for not having completion of income. So I don't think that's our role here. I think there are people who do that for a living. I think if the average person is concerned that they're utilizing a business and they're not claiming it, they should be asking for a receipt, and that's the first step. And if they're insistent on paying credit card, there's plenty of businesses that take credit card that sell the same thing in Richmond. So you're welcome to take your dollar where you like.
Okay, my suggestion is somewhat simple, that there's been lots of discussion as to whether option 2 is viable, but I haven't heard any really contrary stuff on option 1. So my suggestion is that we would have that motion as recommended. And then if councilors want to make a referral motion on option 2 or option 3 or both of them or whatever, we'll entertain that. Okay? All right. So that's the recommendation, which is option 1, is moved and seconded, but as I say, it's not exclusive. Further discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. So, Councillor Heed, you want to make a referral motion?
Yes, I just need clarification on a couple things, and I think would be responsible for me to respond to a couple things. What we're looking for is businesses in Richmond, Mayor, to be responsible. We're not, getting into something we shouldn't be. The intent was to see what we could do as a local responsible government. If we know, for example, there are irresponsible businesses operating in Richmond, whether they're selling health products that are not authorized, a company would just find upwards of $1 million, and one of the stores was in Richmond. Whether it's beauty products that they have been caught selling, they were not complaints, they were dealt with by Health Canada. So let's just get this straight. So what I would like to see is, I think Councillor Day had a good recommendation in number 3. So I guess my motion is to refer this back to staff to see what we could do as a local government to ensure that businesses are operating responsibly that are cash only in Richmond. And that, Mayor, and I don't know how we want to vote on option 3, but I would recommend that we follow option 3 with the educational part of it.
Well, right now, we're just dealing with option 2.
So that's my referral on option 2.
Just a minute. So the referral is to see what the city can do to have the businesses acting responsibly. Do you want to define responsibly?
Related to cash-only businesses, so we can ensure that there's no tax evasion or tax avoidance.
Is that seconded? Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm not supporting that. I think that we are outside our lane. I think that, that we are adopting, potentially adopting something that is the purview of the CRA. And you make the reference has been made to the beauty products. The fact why we shut that business down, in my mind, was because what they were doing was a hazard to the community, to the public safety of the community. So we're not here to be the moral police for our city. What we're here to do is we have defined roles and to monitor businesses for the CRA is not within that. So I'm not supporting. We have a defined. No, just a minute. If you want to do more, you go back on the speakers list. Councillor Day.
Yeah, given the question that you just asked, can we ask our legal department whether we can legally require 2 forms of payment?
Well, I think unless, Tony, unless you want to give us your opinion right this minute, that would be part of the referral.
Through your worship, to Councillor Day. On the very limited question of whether it's within the scope of the city's powers to require a business to accept payments in addition to cash, I have provided that opinion, and yes, I have concluded it is within the city's powers to require a business to accept another form of payment in addition to cash.
So it is within the city's power.
And Mr.
That is
Chair-
not a taxation issue, though. That I'm simply repeating what I had provided, which is simply that it is within the scope of the city's powers to require business operators to accept payments in addition to cash, another form of payment in addition to cash.
Or alternatively, they could accept debit and credit and no cash. Is that correct?
That is a different question, which I have not provided an opinion on.
So maybe the referral would be a good idea, just because I just checked on the Square, and they, same as a business, any business, they charge 2.5% on a credit card, and if you use your Interact, it's 0.75%, just like a normal store would, so there's no difference. I can support the motion to refer it back, because I'd like some more, some of these questions answered. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Heed.
Just quickly in response to you, Mayor, not to prolong this debate, but it's our job to make sure we're licensing businesses that are acting responsibly. That's the point I want to make.
What do you do about Councillor Galanders and the example she gives? The contractor goes to the business, goes to the bank, gets $10,000, pays all his workers in cash. How is that going to be protected by anything you propose?
It's not. I'm talking about businesses. A lot of, and I know exactly what that example Councillor Galanders gave, because I was standing behind the person in the bank, and they come in there every single day and take $10,000 out of a bank here in Richmond to pay their workers. And that contractor has businesses all over, not just Richmond.
Okay.
That's not the intent of this motion.
So what businesses are you limiting it to?
The ones that we license, that we're aware of.
You license contractors.
Well, look, you can take this as far as you want. If you want to add that to it, let's add it to it.
Okay, what specifically do you want to add to it? I'd like to know the definition of what businesses you want.
You know, you're going to micromanage this to death so it gets buried. That's not the point of it. That's up to our staff to come back to us with. If they can come up with something with respect to that, and they've heard your question, and we'll just wait and see. My intent was to deal with these businesses that are open, that just accept cash.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair on the referral. You know, the thing is, whether or not the city is legally required or legally authorized or able to require people to have two forms of payment is one question. Often, when you're legally authorized or have the power or authority to do something, it doesn't necessarily mean you always do it. So with this referral on a couple things regarding the education of stakeholders and that, which is mentioned in the report, I think that's best handled by the Chamber of Commerce and other stakeholders that are involved deeply with our business community. On the issue of responsible businesses in Richmond, I find the vast majority of businesses in Richmond are responsible, and that includes people that get paid in cash as well. I don't have any evidence to support that the ones I've dealt with would be avoiding taxes, although I'm sure that it does happen occasionally. So with this referral, I did support option one, and I think that sufficiently addresses the issue for us, and so I won't be supporting the referral. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to call the question on the referral, which is to refer this option two back and get all this other information. All those in favor? Those opposed? So that, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 4-4. Councillor Glanders, are you there?
I'm here. I did not oppose.
I'm sorry?
I voted in favor.
Well, we didn't hear your vote or see your vote. Okay, so it is carried again with those opposed are councillors Au, Hobbs, Liu, and the mayor opposed. All right, so that brings us to the new primary liquor license, Spark Karaoke Limited, and we'll ask staff for their comments.
To your worship, I just would like to begin with a brief summation of some of the new material that has come about, and I'll begin by noting that currently Spark is operating as a restaurant, a food primary, and they are open till 2 a.m. And this particular late night restaurant would not have come to council's attention originally for endorsement because of the fact that this business was purchased or the liquor food primary license was transferred from a previous business. That business was named doing business as Heijo. So just a little bit of context on that. And then recently it's come to the attention of staff through due diligence that there was some previous problems for another business titled Nova Home Event Planning, which is also was doing business as Solo Karaoke in Burnaby. I note that it is the same director and owner, whose name is Miss Yan Zhang, or Wendy Zhang. And I'd just like to provide a brief summary of some of the incidents that were involved in that prior business, and some pretty disturbing and concerning events transpired there, ultimately culminating in the removal of and the cancellation of Solo Karaoke. It begins with sort of a series of complaints, 9 consecutive public complaints regarding Solo Karaoke, who is serving alcohol without a license in a short period of time from August 2021 until December 30th, 2022. Those violations are noted on GP 64. One particular disturbing violation is noted under item 4, not merely serving liquor, but serving unstamped vaping products. So we're not sure of whether those products were healthy, whether they're vetted, whether they're brought in the country appropriately. That type of due diligence takes additional time because you would have to look through different federal agencies to look at the culmination of that investigation, but clearly that's a violation. In addition to that, on GP 65, you'll note multiple zoning violations in the first table. And then further on, down the page on TB 65, you'll note the concerted efforts on multiple attempts from City of Burnaby bylaw enforcement staff to get this business to cease and desist, a back and forth of warning letters of agreed promises that were again and again violated. All of this culminated in an RCMP inspection that occurred, it's noted on GP 62. I'd just like to turn your attention to a disclosure letter from RCMP Constable Tammy Annenson. And this is what the RCMP have noted. This is directly from the RCMP Prime file regarding this particular investigation. The police noted, patrons told police that 10 minutes before police entered the business, they were asked to hide beer bottles and cans. Once confronted, again, staff admitted to selling alcohol. Further checks of the premises revealed large disposable unstamped vape products were displayed for sale. Police also located large quantity of unopened beer and hard liquor. What's deeply concerning about this is the integrity issue that staff appears to have been advising the patrons to not answer police questions truthfully. So that's just a brief summation of some of the issues. In addition, one has to wonder about how the public could have been compromised and put at risk by the sale of unstamped and unlicensed vaping products.
Through your worship, if I may additionally comment, as council is aware, there was correspondence received today from the applicant's consultant as well as the applicant's solicitor. My legal advice as city solicitor is that you can proceed with consideration of this matter without regard to the contents of that correspondence. The information that is set out in the memorandum from the Director of Licensing and Bylaws, Mark Corrado, is clearly relevant, and it is open to council to consider that information in determining what its comments and recommendations would be. I would also point out that the legislation that's referred to by the applicant's consultant and solicitor is not as limited as they set it out to be, that it is open to council, as I said, to rely and consider the information that's in Mr. Corrado's report. I would also add that the Interpretation Act clearly states that enactments are remedial, that every enactment must be construed as being remedial and must be given such fair, large, and liberal construction and interpretation as best ensures the attainment of its objects. That, too, would be a basis for the opinion I provided that the material is clearly relevant and it is open to committee and then council to consider that information in formulating the resolution it chooses to adopt.
So the history of what happened in Burnaby is, in your opinion, relevant to this consideration in front of us?
That is correct, Your Worship.
And secondly, it's also relevant because there are different companies that were involved, but the same owner.
Yes.
We can kind of peel back the corporate veil, as it were, and consider the acts of the company and that owner in Burnaby and try and surmise what it would be in Richmond.
That is correct.
Different company, but same owner.
Yes, same operating mind, business owner.
All right. Now, we've got some delegations on this. Is there any more questions of our staff? Councillor Heed.
Just one question, either to our solicitor or Mr. Corrado. Was any of this information available to us, or were we made aware of it when the application came forward?
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, no, that information was not made available to us of any prior history of bylaw violations or police investigations by the applicant.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. There will probably be more questions. We'll hear from the delegations now. So Listed as a delegation is Bert Hick and Noel Lau. You want to come forward, introduce yourselves, and we have the written material that you've submitted to us, so tell us what's on your mind.
Yes, thank you, and we've only got a few minutes, so we'll be right to the point. Wendy wanted to be here today, but what happened when we got the first report that you considered a couple of weeks ago, the report dated January the 16th, which was recommending approval. Oh, I'm sorry, Bert Hick, Rising Tide Consultants.
I am Noel Lau, counsel for SPOC.
And we thought we were golden with this application that recommended it be supported. And then we came to council and she had to go out of town out of country on a business trip, and she can't be here. But we did request the staff that this item be held over to a later date so she could be here to answer any questions and have the conversation relative to Burnaby if you want to go down that road. We were refused by staff to have this matter held over because of the fact that your staff has the impression that the liquor branch needs to have this decision by 1st of April. However, in the material I put forward to you, it's clear that the branch would grant an extension of time for further consideration of this application. There's a letter of correspondence in there from Laura Scagalati, who just started with our firm today, who was with the liquor branch for 10 years, and the branch always grants a request from local government for extension for more time. So she could be here, and you could hear from her. Now, the branch, what happened here is the role of local government in liquor licensing, and I hope one of you will ask me the question how it came about, because I'd like to do that, but I don't have much time under this part of my presentation. But the role of local government in liquor licensing is to consider the land use consideration, noise, traffic, parking, zoning, community input, go through a public input process. The determination as to whether or not someone's a fit and proper person, and that's the words in the Liquor Control Licensing Act, is the responsibility of the general manager of the branch and his investigative team. The determination on Wendy she's been through the process twice with the liquor branch. Once when the light food primary license, which is there now, was transferred to her, and secondly with this application for a liquor primary license. She passed her litmus test. And believe me, if you have put every applicant for a liquor license through the test of checking every municipality where they might have had an infraction before you approve it, you're gonna have one big department. That's a lot of work because the responsibility belongs with the liquor branch. It's their lane, to use a word spoken earlier. It's not the role of the local government. With respect to Burnaby, we admit there were mistakes. She had bad staff, bad management, and things were held in a wrong way. But she paid the price to the city of Burnaby, and they canceled her business license, and she learned from those mistakes. Now, the reason we're involved with her is because we want to get off to the right start here in Richmond. And with us, our involvement is to not only get her properly licensed, but also to stay involved in terms of policies, procedures, staff training, and supervision of the establishment so it'll operate. And we do that with establishments. We do it with hotels, we do it in the airport, we do it with stadiums, Rogers, and other places to make sure they're compliant and make sure they have policy, procedures, and staff training. So in the material I gave you is a lot of words about the role of local government in liquor licensing, but it came about through the input from a councillor, well, alderman at the time, Carol Taylor was one of the leaders of this in the city of Vancouver. So I'll turn it over to my colleague here to address the legal points.
Thank you. In terms of the process that was followed, and this was mostly in the first report that was sent to committee, we could see that, sorry. Are you able to hear me now? Better? Thank you. In the first report that was made to the committee, there were certain processes followed that are the regular processes, like checking for the impact on the community and if there are any objections. And these processes were followed. Everything came out in favor of SPOC. Now, The only reason why this is not being supported, as they say, is because of this issue in Burnaby. But that was only one proven incident. And whatever the infractions were, that was dealt with, that was done and dusted. But there are some legal implications or concerns about this that we have. We understand that it is not for the city to be engaging in these investigations. Rather, there is the authority of the LICA branch or the general manager to be getting into this. That is what the fit and proper assessment is about. And it's not an assessment of the shareholder, it's an assessment of the applicant or a holder. And here the applicant or holder is not Ms. Yan Zhang. It is Park and not Solo Karaoke. Now, looking at what the manual says, and this is also accepted by the BC Court of Appeal, you cannot equate a shareholder with the applicant. The owner of a business is not the same thing. And I think this is where the issue of corporate veil and everything falls under that too. The general manager's decisions pursuant to the statutory regime are based upon the opinion on whether the holder is a fit person. It is not for the committee, or rather I would say the city, to supersede its authority. The proper review was done in the first place and everything came out to be fine. But it's just that we had additional investigations which were not needed, and that exceeded the scope of what it should have been limited to initially. Now, with all administrative decisions, there has to be a balance, and there must be a proportion. It's an exercise of proportionality, reaching that. Now, what must be considered is the adverse impact on an applicant, and also it must be weighed against the public purpose that is sought to be advanced. It is important to note that a reasonable decision is not simply based on existence of some evidence. And here we see that the city has exceeded its scope and its authority. It's trying to circumvent the authority that belongs to the general manager. Now, what happens is government decision-making bodies must be reasonable, and they should not act in a way that is considered to be ultra-virus. It is not for each level of government to police applicants. Considering unrelated information prior to making a decision will render the decision unreasonable, and that can even be quashed later if we go to the extent of judicial review, and this is once again recognized as the law in BC. Now, a primary argument is just that this investigation should not have happened in the first place. It is improper. It is too broad. Maybe if the general manager of the LICA branch wanted to go to that stage, that is for them to decide. The fit and proper assessment had been done. There was no impact on the community, noise levels, no issue, and there were also no objections raised. So that is our primary argument.
The only thing I would add to that is since this license was transferred to her, the existing food primary license at the establishment, my understanding is there's not been any issues whatsoever with the city of Richmond, with bylaws or anything.
But now she wants liquor primary.
Well, this is for the liquor primary. She currently has a food primary license.
Right. You've made reference, I think you said that there was one complaint or one incident?
Yes, I stand to be corrected.
Yes.
I understand that there were 9 complaints, but there was only one proven incident.
I mean, I'm looking at the Burnaby report, serving liquor without a license, noise disturbance, unauthorized public assembly use, more without a license, allowing smoking inside the premises.
There were complaints, and I understand while those complaints were, I understand there were issues with investigations, and they were not all of them were proven.
There is in Burnaby, where the establishment was located, right beside it was a hookah smoking lounge. And so there was a crossover of people in the area and streets, and it's not totally clear even to me how much of it is responsible of Wendy's or versus the hookah lounge that was located beside it. In this location in Richmond, we won't have that problem.
Councillor Day, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm looking at our GP 113, and this is a document from the province of British Columbia. It's dated March 4th, 2025, and it says, "This company is not in good standing."
Thank you for bringing that up. It is now in good standing. She just failed to have her lawyer file the annual report with the company under the Business Corporations Act, and that has now been corrected in the last page of what I'll hand it to you. The last page of my submission, we put the document in there showing that the annual report has been filed. It was filed on March 13th.
Okay, and then my other question is, they have a food license and they can serve liquor with food.
Yep.
If we deny this, would she continue to run the business under that
She
premise?
would, but the reality is with karaoke lounges, they should be licensed as a liquor primary license establishment, because it's just that it gives the nature of the establishment should be a liquor primary. But they do get, under the liquor primary license, a minor's endorsement, so that minors can be on the premise, accompanied by parent or guardian, or a person deemed responsible for the minor, because quite often karaoke establishments are very popular for family celebratory events like birthdays, anniversaries, and things like that.
All right. Councillor Heed.
Yes, just to clarify, Mr. Hicks, you and I are not in a conflict. I don't believe you ever worked under my direction over in Victoria. So I think
I was doing consulting work when you were there.
we're free of that, okay.
I didn't work for you then. I was general manager of the liquor branch back in the 80s.
Yes,
And,
yes.
When we first rolled out the involvement of local governments in liquor licensing. And what happened, it's an interesting story, is I got a phone call one day from Alderman Carol Taylor at the City of Vancouver. And
You
she
better
said,
stick to the point here.
okay, well, the point is,
M-
that's how.
Mr. Hicks,
that
I
was
just
way
want
back
to,
in the 80s.
make sure, because you and I know one another fairly well. And you've got a wealth of knowledge in this particular area, and I respect the knowledge you have in this area. And I just specific on what you talked about, 9 or even the 1 substantiated complaint that was brought forward, did it go to the attention of the liquor control licensing branch or to the general manager of the liquor branch? And if so, was there any consequence from them?
We had no consequences from the liquor branch.
But it went forward to them?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it did or not, because the investigation was handled by the city of Burnaby and the police. I don't know what the involvement of the liquor branch was, whether or not the area liquor inspector was involved, or if there was a report filed or not.
Now, the point I want to make here is police that make recommendations, and this goes back to when I had to do investigations with people that wanted business licenses in Vancouver, especially related to some of the vice activities, liquor, and all of those other things. If the police make a recommendation, and I'll ask Mr. Corrado on this particular file too, with respect to yes or no on that, how is that viewed by the liquor branch?
They take it very seriously. If they get a complaint from the police or from a liquor inspector or from a municipality. And give you an example of that, just across the bridge here, there's a place called, that's been in the media, so it's public knowledge, called Gallery Show Lounge underneath the Arthur Lang Bridge. And that came to the attention of the liquor branch through the City of Vancouver Police Department, and that place is now undergoing a fit and proper review conducted by the general manager of the branch regarding the status of that license.
And from my point, you mentioned the investigations should not have been done. I can tell you investigations will always be done if need be. It's whether they substantiate the complaint or not with respect to that. If the city was to deny a business license or deny the application because she already has a business license for a liquor primary, other than a judicial review of that decision, is there any other legal framework with respect to that? That might be better suited for our city solicitor, but I just would ask you based on your expertise.
If you want to answer that question, that calls for some legal advice.
Okay, well, all I was going to say is, in that point, to hold a liquor license, you have to have all your other permits in good standing, health, business license, whatever else. And that's a requirement of the branch. And if the business license is pulled, or if they lose their health certificate, then the liquor license can be canceled as well.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Councillor Galanders, who is virtual. You got a
Thank you.
question?
Just one question of the delegation here. Thank you. Who would have been the person responsible for supplying the establishment in Burnaby with the unregulated vaporizing products? And how would that be different from the people operating the site in Richmond?
I didn't quite catch that.
The vaping products
Yeah,
that were supplied,
yeah.
that were what? Not
Unstamped,
labeled. Yeah.
like
Where
not,
did they
they
come
weren't
from?
regulated.
Yeah, I have no knowledge of what happened with the vaping products that were found there. This is, you know, she had very bad management and staff.
Yeah, but you know that's not an excuse.
Pardon?
You know that's not an excuse, bad management.
Yeah.
Anything else, Councillor Galanders?
No, that was my only question.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Keep this.
And I'll ask our staff, is there anything more? Either Mark or Tony? Okay, why don't you come on back? Councillor Heed.
Did we ask our local police to look into it and a recommendation from our police?
Through your worship to Councillor Heed, yes, the RCMP looked into whether there were any criminal incidents regarding Spark as a business since they've been operating in Richmond. That was the scope of the request. There was no request made to the RCMP to look at any other businesses associated with the director of the operation, Ms. Yan Zhang. To this date, there has not been any other requests for criminal records checks, given the fact that the incident is now in the public view and in an open source, but I have not made any further inquiries for closed source through the RCMP. Staff are continuing to try to determine if there were any further investigative steps or enforcement measures resulting from the sale of unstamped vaping products, whether any further contraventions occurred related to that particular violation.
So based on the current business practices right now, there's nothing on your file or the RCMP's file? The operation in Richmond?
Through your worship, to Councillor Heath, that is correct.
Thank you.
All right, Councillor Day.
Given that we have a report from the Burnaby detachment of the RCMP dated, I think, February 10th, 2023, is there any reason to assume that the Richmond RCMP would disagree with the Burnaby RCMP if asked?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I won't speak on behalf of the RCMP. However, logic dictates that both the Richmond RCMP and the Burnaby RCMP, of course, are sharing the same police records information management environment prime and would have access to both of those records. So it's highly doubtful that the detachment would disagree with the outcome of an investigation that was conducted by the Burnaby detachment.
Okay, and then I'm looking once again at this BC that says, BC report saying company's not in good standing. And on the annual report supplied by BC Registration Services, it just states file, date, and time. But it doesn't, is it supposed to say that the company is in good standing, like this document that Mr. Hicks supplied?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, I'm not sure when the system updates, or I'm not sure of, I know that once that eventually, once the business has filed the appropriate applications, the system will be updated. It is curious that the timing of said update occurred in March.
Interesting. So if we take the staff recommendation and deny adding this liquor primary application, they can still continue to operate as they have been operating with the license, which allows them to sell liquor, but with food. Is that correct?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, that is correct.
Okay, so why don't we just deny it for now, see how they behave over the next year or so, and then we'll let them reapply.
Okay, Councillor Hobbs.
Thank you, and through the chair, I would like you to comment on the comments made during the presentation by the applicant regarding the city's role in this process being restricted to land use only, and that further consideration / investigation is entirely in the purview of the liquor branch. Could you comment on that?
Yes, through your worship to Councillor Hobbs, as I said in my initial remarks, I disagree with that. It is open to council to consider the information that's set out in the report. Ultimately, when the matter does proceed to the province or to the branch, if the, and I forget the title of the individual's name, but if he disagrees, and it's set out in section 39, I'll just read, if the general manager is satisfied that the local government or First Nation failed to comply with section 38 sub 3, or the recommendation of the local government or First Nation is not in the public interest, then they can proceed and make the decision. So ultimately, in my legal advice, it is certainly within the scope of what is contemplated. And again, I spoke of the Interpretation Act and adhering to the objects of the legislation and determining its interpretation. And I would say absolutely, the past conduct of the operating mind or of the same business owner in another municipality of a similar business is certainly relevant. And if the general manager under the legislation is going to disagree with that, they're going to have to provide their rationale. But certainly I don't see the legislation as limiting. It says you must consider certain criteria, but it does not limit the criteria. And I think that's a fundamental difference in my opinion.
Thanks, and thanks for verbalizing that to the committee and to the public. Thanks.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you. Through you to staff, thank you for the information and thank you for all the conversations you've been having with me on this. My thoughts around this are what we're doing, is it fair? So they're requesting a liquor primary, and we're doing a level of due diligence that I'm not aware we've typically done, but will we now do this with everybody asking to elevate or change to a liquor primary or other, and what other categories might we sort of do this extra layer of due diligence for? Because certainly if somebody's coming to open, I don't know, a McDonald's, we're not gonna go to the RCMP and ask if there's any sort of relevant information we know, or will we?
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, the objective of the report with the recommendations from staff is to furnish council with relevant information. And there are certain situations where information isn't initially available and then later comes to light. And that's what's occurred here. It is not the same as an investigation of a bylaw offense. This is purely providing council with information so that it can make meaningful comments and recommendations to the liquor and cannabis branch. So I would not confuse them with the different roles that city council sits in. So there isn't anything unusual or untoward. There were questions that were posed at committee by members of the committee that triggered certain additional review, and that additional review resulted in a finding that this business, the same owner had a similar business in Burnaby, and the rest is contained in the information that you have in the memorandum.
Okay, and now that we have this information, we have to make our decision based on the information in front of us.
Through your worship to Councillor Liu, it's open to the committee, of course, to make its decision. Staff furnishes council with information, and what council ultimately does with that information is for council to decide.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but I'm still unclear of the implication of the decision that we are going to make today. If we choose to accept this additional information as relevant and deny the application, would it set a precedent that in the future, it becomes a practice for us to do the same thing, to find out, more information, say, for example, in other cities, before we would consider an application? So would this be turned into a practice?
Through your worship to Councillor Al, the practice is to furnish council with relevant information. In this case, that entailed two steps. Two steps that were, as set out in the memo, triggered by questions. And so there isn't a prescriptive practice, nothing written on paper. It is purely about furnishing council with what staff perceives as to be relevant information. And that's the exercise. There's no fear of precedent, nothing of the sort. Each individual application comes before council, and council makes its decision based on the information it has or information it requests. And in this case, it was a combination.
Okay, good, thank you.
All right, so this is, there's nothing more than, well, excuse you, gents. This one's a little bit different because we passed a motion a couple weeks ago to say, yeah, we'd support it. Then we got more information. So if you want to leave the decision we made 2 weeks ago alone, just receive this for information. Or if you want to suggest that we don't support this application, then it would be the staff recommendation here. So someone make a motion.
The staff recommendation.
So that's moved and seconded. Okay. Okay, yeah. Any comments, questions? Okay, Councillor Glanders, you had a comment or something?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Your Worship. Just in relation to land use, as that's the, one thing we're supposed to be looking at. How did this relate to the referral we have on where we want our entertainment district to be? But I was going to ask that before I realized that we had actually already approved this one a couple weeks ago, as per your comments. I remembered that we did do some on Alexandra Road, but we haven't seen them open and see the effects on the neighborhood. And this would be increasing the hours to 2 a.m. And since we don't know exactly where we had decided we wanted our quote entertainment-like district to be, I thought it might be prudent to hold off on changing their hours until next year and review it then, as Councillor Day suggested.
Well, this is a continuation of an existing business, so.
Would it change the operating hours though?
Well, no, it's changing operating hours and it's giving it a liquor primary license. But in terms of where it is, it's already an established business.
It's already there, yeah, okay.
Councillor Day.
I just want to be clear on the motion that's on the table is to accept
It's the staff recommendation.
which is today's,
Don't support it.
which leaves it exactly the way it is, right?
No,
Leaves the
just-
business, it's not going to become liquor primary.
We don't support it going to be liquor primary.
Good, that's the motion on the table.
So now, Tony, Mark, so if this goes through, from our point of view, we want the license to stay the way it is. It's not cancellation of his license, it's to stay the way it is, which is food primary.
To your worship, that's correct. What is being sought by the applicant is council's endorsement for a different type of license. If that endorsement is not given by council, the ultimate decision still rests with the general manager, with the LCRB, and what is not at stake is the current license that would still be in effect and still valid.
Through your worship, if I might add, the recommendation of staff is set out in the March 5th, 2025 memorandum.
Yeah.
So
which in essence is to not support
Right.
the liquor primary.
Sorry, and if this is, if our decision is going to be to leave it as is and not allow for liquor primary, I think in this particular case, it would be important to attach a letter explaining to the liquor board why we flip-flopped our
Well,
decision.
the letter would go and there would be some explanation of this.
And through your worship to Councillor Day, that is contemplated in recommendations 1, 2, and 3 of the memorandum of March 5th, 2025.
Okay, Councillor Heat.
Yes, Mayor, based on procedural matters here, I'm not sure whether we add a number 4 to this and monitor them over the next whatever number of months or a year, and that if we don't find any violations under their current licensing, that we entertain an application for a liquor primary at that time.
Well, wouldn't they have to make a further application in a year's time and then that would start the process again?
To your worship, that's correct. There's nothing precluding the applicant for reapplying. I would note that the applicant is currently operating under a completely different business license right now than what is being contemplated, which is a liquor primary.
Right.
So I guess close monitoring of it over the next year. So next time, if they do reapply, that we have some substantial information and it's not clouded by the fact that we've got this other report from Burnaby.
Through your worship, to Councillor Heat, certainly staff intend on having this particular establishment and I would say all of the food primaries and liquor primaries under its queue for regular inspections. And if there are any substantial violations that should come to light, those would surface when staff takes forward their report to either endorse or not endorse the liquor application.
So that's the staff recommendation and council can do with that what they see fit.
To your worship, that's correct.
So if you say there's all these irregularities, we choose to ignore them or vice versa, that's the way the system works.
To your worship, that's correct.
Okay, all right, let's call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. That brings us to the fourth item, which is social media accounts. You've got, Councillor Glanders has put forward a motion. Councillor Glanders, do you want to speak to it?
I do, thank you, and thanks for entertaining this motion. We received a few letters from the public asking us to stop posting on X. I looked into our government's getting out of posting on X, and you'll see there's a number of concerns that have come up regarding changes that have been made since Elon Musk bought the platform, particularly when it comes to verification and credibility of accounts. So there's information that isn't verified. The way that Elon Musk controls the algorithm, I don't know if you noticed, but I saw during the US election that on the top of my feed every single day was propaganda from Elon Musk and Donald Trump, even though I don't follow either of their accounts. But it was always there. So concerns about election interference and the fact that Elon Musk is part of the US government, that it's denying that Canada is a real country and is aggressively threatening our sovereignty at all times. So do we want to be supporting a company owned by Elon Musk in this way and using it as our government communications is the question that we have here. And when we look at talking about our followers, so staff pointed out that we have 10,600 or so odd followers on the account. But if you actually look at the engagement, so every single post that the city has done, I just looked at the last 12 in a row, we're getting, say, 456 views on one, 344 on another, 408. 350. So we're not getting 10,000 people actually seeing the post, the engagement. The people who see the post is around 300. And then as far as likes or retweets, we may get 1 or 2 likes, no comments, And if you look at Blue Sky, our City of Richmond Blue Sky account, the engagement is almost the same. We know that Blue Sky is still growing, and it's not as large as Twitter, but our city hasn't been posting on Blue Sky as much as X. Sorry, I called it Twitter, but X. So in the last 12 days, we've done 12 posts on X, but we've only done 5 on Blue Sky. And just personally, so I decided I was going to stop engaging on X and move to Blue Sky. And I said, how can I get some more followers on here? I followed some lists and put some things out there, and I grew to 1,947 followers in 3 weeks from nothing. And the city only has 178 followers. So my motion is not to delete X right now. What I would like to do, because Blue Sky and X are good for sharing news, whereas Instagram, where we have quite a large following, is not so much for news, but more for just city information and engagement. And our engagement's very high on there. But the platform like Blue Sky and X has a role that's important. So I would like the city to take the steps to really take increasing our following on Blue Sky more seriously and post on Blue Sky as the regular, and then analyze the results, grow the following, perhaps put out some messaging on X that says the city is not going to be posting on X regularly anymore. Follow us on Blue Sky. And you could even put out a survey. Do you agree with this? Yes, no. And monitor it and report back. Let's move in this direction. I'd like to hear what other people have to say about it, but I think it's important that we don't support this platform, just as governments have been advised not to have TikTok or WeChat on city devices. There's a security risk, and I think that this is right up there. So I'll leave that for now and hear what people have to say. I don't know if we have to break for the public hearing and come back, but that's up to you, Mayor.
Forward, Mr. Adams, let's have a chat about this. Now, you've heard what has been said, but isn't that exactly what we are doing? We are kind of not using Twitter as much, and we are going towards Blue Sky.
To your worship, Twitter has been and continues to be one of the key communication tools that we use. It's well established as a news location, more so than Facebook and Instagram. We have certainly adopted Blue Sky in recent weeks when there is increasing interest for some of the reasons that Councillor Galanders has raised around some people's opinions of content. But it's still a very slow-moving social media platform. While we only have 178 followers, there are some who have larger followers, but it has lost a lot of the momentum. We've not seen the momentum in growth in Blue Sky, and I think Blue Sky would admit the same thing, that occurred soon after the events south of the border late last year when there was a movement against some of the content on Twitter, on X, I should say. And just one thing to make clear to people too, the content that is on X, while certainly Mr. Musk and others can feed through the control of the algorithm what people see or what comes up on people's feeds, it is very much dictated by what you actually tend to look at yourself. Individuals who have an interest in political content can see political content. There are people who will look at videos on sporting issues and things like that. So the algorithm is actually really, the content rather is determined by the algorithm of what the users themselves do. Much like saying basically you watch on television what you watch on television. If you don't, you watch something else.
All right, thank you. We need to break now for a public hearing. So I've got a number of speakers, but unfortunately it's just on 5. Okay, I'll let you have 1 minute each. Councillor Day.
Yeah, we need to do this, and BC's already stopped advertising 2 years ago on X, and City of Richmond is considering it. North Van's already doing it. There's a couple of cities in Ontario that are off of X. It's time.
Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks through the chair. I think the priority for the city is to communicate with people where they are. Twitter is still, or X is still viable. So I think we have to go to where the public is. I don't disagree with the sentiment that's been expressed. but the participation of the public on different forums is pretty low, whether it's Let's Talk or voting and voter turnout even. So I think we have to monitor it, and if we can move away from it, that'd be great. Personally, I've already canceled my account, so I don't disagree with it, but I think we have to go to where the people are. Thanks.
Councillor Heath.
Yes, quickly, you got to remember, Twitter was set up in a way that they didn't foresee the spread of some of the hate and vitriol that is spread throughout the algorithms in Twitter. And the bots will spread it. And I know you're saying it's driven by the user, when in fact, you can control the algorithm and they can push that stuff to you based on what they think you should be having on your previous behavior. So I'm not a fan of Mr. Musk and what's going on in the United States. But if we're using this to get information out to our community, I'm for it. But I think we should limit it to that and not be involved in anything further with respect to that.
Councillor Liu, you got 1 minute.
Thank you, Worship. It's my understanding that we don't pay to actually do any posting on X, and it seems to me that there's a lot of information that goes out, including emergency preparedness, when there's snowfall warnings, things like that. So people who are following it, the key piece is that people are getting the communication that they were expecting to get. And I think that we have professional staff that handle the communications, and I think we should let them choose how they're going to do it and evaluate them on their ability to communicate with people. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Just quickly, Your Worship, I believe we have to increase every aspect of communication and do the best we can and utilize even more so than what we've got. And we, as was mentioned, we need to go to where the people get their information. Even if it's a small group, we need to go to try to impact every group. So.
All right. All right, with that, now to Councillor Galanders, unless you got a specific wording of your motion, and that's what we're going ahead with, I assume. If you've got a different wording based on what I've heard you say, when we come back after the public hearing, which I anticipate will be very short, then we're going to need whatever that wording is. So.
Okay, I'll adjust it. Yep, thank you.
Mr. Adams, if you could stay close, because we're going to come back to you right after the public hearing. So with that, I'm going to recess this General Purposes Committee meeting. And is there any member of the public here for the public hearing? What does that mean? No, we're not. They switched to here. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the public hearing. Need a motion to allow Councillor Galanders to come in remotely? All those in favor, post carried. You've got the first item, which is a City of Richmond matter. You've got the agenda there.
Move second and third.
Just hold it a sec. Is there anything that staff wants to say about it? Is there any written submissions? Any written submissions? Okay, anybody wanting to speak to us on this item on the agenda?
Move second and third.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Further discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. And the other one also is a City of Richmond matter to amend conditions when a development permit is required for development of small-scale multi-unit housing. Do we want to say anything about that? Any written submissions? No? Anybody want to speak to us on this item on the agenda? Anybody?
Second and third.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, we're now adjourned. And I will go back to the, General Purposes Committee meeting. I'll call that back to order. Councillor Galanders, do you have a specific wording, or is what we see on our agenda what you want?
I have a specific wording, and then I'd like to wrap up comments.
Well, I'd like to hear.
My proposed, sorry?
Let's hear the motion.
Sure. My proposed wording would be that staff analyze actual Richmond engagement on X, actively increase following on Blue Sky, post on Blue Sky as regularly as X, and report back on progress.
Oh, yeah. Just hang on. Okay, we've got a notion of that. But Madam Clerk, if you could get that down in writing, please, so that we can look at it. It's way too complicated to analyze just in the air. We do have two delegations at least on this. I've got Alex Sagert, who's that? You're here? Come on forward. So, introduce yourself. You've got 5 minutes.
Alex Sagert, V73L2. Social media is an essential tool for communication relied upon by thousands of residents to stay informed about city updates and events. The motion put forward by Councillor Galandis to, now further study the use of the X account is nothing short of discriminatory against a significant portion of Richmond's population who use the platform to engage with their local government. Moreover, forcing a switch to a lesser-known social media platform stripes away transparency, diminishes community engagement. A government's responsibility is to make information accessible, not to dictate which platforms residents must use to stay informed. The justification for this motion, a single letter submitted by a member of the public. One letter out of 11,500 followers of the account in question is now being used to justify the waste of time and taxpayer dollars. This is a shocking misuse of council resources and an insult to the intelligence of Richmond residents. Furthermore, Councillor Galander's blatant promotion of an alternative social media platform, Blue Sky, raises serious concerns. Is there a personal interest at play here? Transparency in government decision-making is critical, and this action raises red flags about potential bias. With all the pressing issues facing our community today, it is absolutely absurd that a councillor has chosen to prioritize the investigation of deactivating the City of Richmond's official X account while blatantly ignoring the homeless encampment sitting across the street this very meeting is being held. Instead of engaging in performative politics, perhaps council should refocus its efforts on real issues that actually impact Richmond residents, such as housing, infrastructure, and public safety, just to name a few. Our city deserves better than this kind of political theater. The letter submitted in support of this motion criticized the owner of X, Elon Musk, claiming he is an anti-Canadian. If this is truly something Councillor Galanders is concerned about, will she also be selling her Tesla that she drives every day? The vehicle produced by the same anti-Canadian company. The hypocrisy here is glaring. I urge council to vote nay on this motion and move on to more important matters. Thank you.
Yes, I was going to call a point of order, Mr. Sager. You know, I usually listen to what you have to say, but I'm not going to listen to personal attacks against a councillor here, so.
Well, I know you're sensitive to these types of attacks.
I am very sensitive, but I want to tell you that it just wasn't one letter. You know, I personally feel that way
GP
too.
130 and 131 shows
Just
only one letter.
Please.
You're asking questions.
Yes, I am asking a question.
Well, can I have the question, please?
Yes, you'll get the question. You're lucky I didn't call a point of order because you were out of order attacking that councillor.
That's
So
on
my
you, sir.
question.
Just ask your question.
It's not worth it with him.
Okay. Councillor Day, you have a question.
Yeah, you seem a little bit confused. The motion is not to deactivate, it's to move people from X as
The
people.
motion was just changed, correct? Yes.
Yeah. So are you okay with,
No, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. Or to instruct people to look at a certain social media account. We should look at all the social media accounts then.
Okay.
Richmond Fire uses Twitter. Richmond Tourism uses Twitter, TikTok even.
okay, do you understand that it's our responsibility as a council to be
What
completely?
is the question?
Is it not in the best interest of the people of Richmond to have multiple sites such as Blue Sky and Instagram and X for them to.
Correct, but the motion has been changed to investigate to stop posting regularly on Twitter. So I don't understand why we would engage in that and just post on all the social media platforms so the community that has elected you can choose what platform to use, not based on a counselor's personal thoughts.
Okay, so the motion is to direct staff to investigate options. Would you agree that it's good to look at all the options?
All the options are being used currently, though. Is there another social media platform that's coming that I don't know about?
Once again, let's get staff to do their job, which is to inform us on the best options that are out
Well,
there.
this started with a letter from the public urging a counselor to raise a motion, and Councillor Galanders jumped on it. And the original motion was to deactivate the city's official Twitter account. Now it has changed. It's changed. So we're flip-flopping. So there's clearly some confusion on the councillor's part that's motioned this, but.
Okay, well, let's hear the motion from Councillor Galanders.
Hey,
thank you.
Let's do it.
All right, thank you, sir. The other speaker delegate is Will Wang. Are you here? And is there anybody else in the audience who wants to delegate on this item? Okay, the gentleman in the corner. Yes, sir. Please introduce yourself. You got 5 minutes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. My name is Will Wan, a resident of Richmond. My job is software engineering. Actually, I'm pretty familiar with the recommendation system we're discussing here. I'm here to express my deep concern over the city motion. Originally to shut down the X account. Right now, we want to gradually move to promote Blue Sky, a business enterprise. It's not just a matter of platform preference. It's a question of government transparency, accessibility, and the responsibility of public institutions to engage with citizens where they are, not where officials' prefer them to be. I want to give three statements here. The first, the public decides where to engage, not the government. The X remains one of the largest social media platforms for real-time public discourse, over 500 million monthly active users. Compared to Blue Sky, less than 5 million. And many governments, agencies, and international organizations continue use the X because of its reach and efficiency. This includes different city governments in Metro Vancouver, this BC provincial government. Now for Richmond city social media accounts, Twitter has 10K followers, Instagram 7.8K followers, Facebook 14K followers, Blue Sky 178 followers as for today. If the goal is to increase engagement, why abandon a platform with a significantly larger audience in favor of one that is still in its early adoption phase? Instead of shutting down the X account or gradually move away from X, why not maintain both or multiple social media? The second, this decision limits accessibility and public engagement. Government communication should meet people where they are, not where officials wish them to be. I want to repeat this. For emergency updates, city news, public service announcements should be accessible on all major platforms. Journalists and watchdog organizations monitor government activity on the X, ensure accountability and transparency, or even research community do that. By closing the X account or moving away from the X account, the city is not expanding the access, it is restricting it. The third statement, a government that controls access to information, control public narrative. History has told us that governments that centralize their communication to selective platforms reduce transparency, as fewer voices can engage in open discourse. Why should a city councillor have the power to choose an entire community access to the platform equally popular to other platforms? Public officials should not be in the business of choosing winners or losers among social media platforms. Instead, they should focus on expanding engagement, not limiting it. My final call, I urge this council, keep the X account open, expand it to Blue Sky or even other social media platform. Let the public decide where they want to engage with their government. A city government should be inclusive, not exclusive. Rather than restricting communication, the Richmond city should focus on expanding it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. There are no questions? There's no questions. We'll excuse you. Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Starr? Please introduce yourself, and you got 5 minutes.
My name is Sheldon Starrett, live just down the street from here. Yeah, when I first saw this motion, I was a little bit, it was interesting because, I mean, the city of Richmond already has opened a Blue Sky. I think it's kind of redundant to be having this conversation. There is over 11,000 users, I guess, on the city's, followers on the city's Twitter account, and less than 200 on the Blue Sky. So I don't know if we're getting the most reach by entertaining this motion. I think the city should do what it can to reach out to people on all platforms, Facebook, X, Instagram, through the city website. And that's one thing I've been saying. I've been saying the city needs to do more to be open and to reach out with more people. And even a few weeks ago or months ago, I think here at this council, you were all discussing that we need more openness and transparency in the city of Richmond, also in Metro Vancouver. So it is a little bit mind-boggling that a city councillor wants to cut the lines of communication on one area where the city can communicate with the public. So I believe that city council should just dismiss this motion and let the communications team keep doing what they're doing, because they're doing I'll give Clay Adams a compliment. He's doing a good job at reaching out to all segments of the community. So those are my comments, and.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Is there anybody else who wishes to address us on this item on the agenda? Okay, okay, if staff could, Mr. Adams, if you could come back. Councillor Au.
The motion or the discussion has brought forward, I think, a very, perhaps, a key question. So we know that there are so many social platforms out there. And how do you, as the professional person in the city, pick and choose which one to use, which is not? Now, I don't know if we use WeChat or TikTok. I mean, there's just so many out there. So how do you pick and choose? And whether or not you would like to have some guidelines given to you by the council, or you would prefer to have your professionalism?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, every social media platform essentially has a different audience and a different target approach. Facebook is much more conversational, much more detailed in content. Instagram, for example, is much more visual. LinkedIn is much more business focused. X, Twitter, has established a reputation for being much more news focused, immediacy. That's why it's quite popular with emergency information. We use it a lot for weather information, real-time content. We do not currently have a WeChat account, but we are actively looking at working our way through that and expect to have that soon as an engagement tool with our Chinese language community. If you're asking me from a communications perspective, what sort of guidelines and that we would want, we'd like to think that as a communications team, we are recognising, respecting the communication needs both of council, of the city and the community. And would prefer, honestly, not to have the hands tied particularly, because we make judgments every day as to which the best vehicle is to use, and we hope we're successful in doing so. And just an earlier point that was raised around engagement. Engagement on any social media platform varies from item to item. Yes, we have some posts that may only generate a handful or a few hundred pieces of engagement. We've had some items on our X account that have generated several thousand pieces of engagement and feedback and likes and shares. It depends a lot on what the content is.
again, focusing on X and Twitter, from your perspective, has it been functional to serve the purpose of communication for the city?
To Councillor Au, through the chair, sorry, to Councillor Au, yes, I would say it has been very functional. It's a well-established tool. We have a well-established follower base. And I think just as a point of learning, there is another Lower Mainland municipality that recently chose to go off X altogether. And while I cannot speak for that municipality, as an example, it has gone overnight from basically having 13.5 to close to 14,000 followers of people who it reached out to less than 800. It is struggling to get its audience back, and I think it points to the issue of it is not a simple matter of simply going from one platform to another. It takes time to try and win that audience back, and I think that's an example of winning that audience back could be a challenge.
Thank you.
Councillor Day.
Thank you so much for the information. So if we were to put a notification on X that we are posting primarily most of our information on Blue Sky, or whichever one you think is the right, then is it not logical to assume that people would go, oh, they're over there, let's check it out?
I'll just, through the chair to Councillor Day, I'll just go back to the comment a moment ago about another Lower Mainland municipality, which I think made that assumption. And they have openly stated they're no longer on X, they are now on Blue Sky, and they have not seen anywhere near the pickup in the following. They may have other communication vehicles, but it's certainly not as easy as that. There are some other limitations too, as I think are included in the memo around Blue Sky. It does not enable a scheduling function for us. It doesn't allow versatility for us to be able to schedule. We must do real-time posting. So if we know at 5 a.m. in the morning that something is going to be happening in the city, we cannot give advance notice of that in the sense of scheduling to give people a heads up first thing in the morning, because we know that's when people may want to look at their account. It has to be done in real time. That means weekends, real time, 24/7, real time. So there are limitations in the platform, among other things.
Okay, so if we were to, anything that's time sensitive or of an emergency, let's say there's a plane that crashes in Richmond, we would want to put that on X. And is there any reason we couldn't it's a lot of things that we put out that are just for general information and they're not time sensitive. If we were to say prioritize those items to go to Blue Sky, and then the emergent, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, the fire hall's closed because they're out of power, whatever, those items go on X. Is there any way we couldn't do that?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, there is no reason why we could not do that. But if I may say, one of the things you want to do is to build consistency with your audience. You want people to know where to go, and you want them to follow you consistently. People follow media because they trust that media and they frequent that media. They don't always go to one media outlet for this or one social platform for that. We're consistent across all our platforms. We're certainly active on Blue Sky. We are already, in only a few short weeks, the most active of any Lower Mainland municipality, actually. We also openly promote it, post it through our social media banners and ribbons, and we draw attention, which others do not. So we can certainly use it. There is no issue. I think if from a communications perspective and the audience reach that we have, I would be concerned, shall we say, simply turning our back on X as a tool or channel to communicate with our audience.
Just one last question. I did some research on this. I know nothing about this, I'll be honest with you, but you have to go online to find out. It was stated that the BC government stopped advertising on X 2 years ago. Do you know why that was?
Through the chair to Councillor Day, no, I cannot. I would assume that is around the period of time that Elon Musk, I think, took over it. I think from memory took over or purchased that. But we do not advertise. We do not pay to promote on X. It's not a paid platform for us. And to, if I may, sorry, Your Worship, to go back to the earlier question about TikTok, no, we don't, for example, use TikTok because that's in compliance with government concerns around security, not actual content.
And I read that Blue Sky adds 1 million users a day, and that 100 Reddit groups have banned and stopped X links, and that North Vancouver and Cambridge in Ontario and Denver in USA have all left X. Do you know of any others that have left?
Through your worship, Councillor Day, no, I'm not familiar with others. I know of the Lower Mainland municipality that left. Not familiar with others. Certainly, people are making decisions around X and the bigger issues in their own way. I mean, we've seen that with some people are going off X, some people are cancelling accounts. I mean, the reference was made earlier, and some people choose to use or not. Teslas, if I may say so, for example. Some people protest in different ways and make decisions in different ways. We have not gone down that route. But at this point in time, the BC government continues to use X. There are a large number of organisations, federally, private, public sector, that continue to use X as a communication tool, including emergency services, fire rescue, and so on.
Okay, well, let's hear what the motion is.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much. A question to you and a comment. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but what is our goal? Isn't our goal to communicate with the public? Is that our number one priority through in this age of social media?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, absolutely. We wanted to be able to communicate as effectively and as timely and as quickly to as broad an audience as possible.
So, in your opinion, if you would, in my opinion, we need them all. We need to expand and not limit them. When people choose a radio station or TV and they want to get information, they dial into wherever they want. Is that not correct?
Through worship to Councillor McNulty, yes, that's correct.
And whose choice is it? It's the public's choice of what they want to see or read or do or look, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So, given you've given us a limited, have you considered and looked at all the vehicles that might be, I call them vehicles if I may, that might be available to us? You've limited to 2, but all of the ones, I think earlier we heard about TikTok, which I don't have, we talked WeChat, have you as a communication department looked into those and considered any of them and whether we should maybe move into those areas?
Through worship, Councillor McNulty, we are active on a number of platforms. We're active on Facebook, we're active on LinkedIn, we are active on Instagram, we are active on X, we are now active on Blue Sky. We are doing as much as we can to look at a variety of different options, especially considering the changing media landscape that we're dealing with right now too, because we're starting to see how the vehicles that we can use externally to communicate with the public even are becoming more challenging to us.
Okay, it's basically the public or the people's choice of what they do. Would we need to give you direction to increase and expand communication with the public on all social media outlets?
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, we will obviously follow whatever direction council gives us. Right now, we are using all these social media platforms and we'll use them to the maximum effect that we can as a city.
No, I appreciate the fact that somebody brought this up, and it gives us an opportunity to look at what we're doing. Remember, we used to have 3 newspapers in Richmond, for those that can remember, actually 4. And now we're down to 1, and it's online. And that's our only vehicle of communicating through the newspaper to the public. So anyhow, Your Worship, I'm not sure what's coming forward, but I would like us to actually look at expanding and going into other areas. I'd like to ask staff, how often do we put an article in the Punjabi newspaper? Or I should say one of the 4 that are in Richmond.
Through your worship to Councillor McNulty, whenever we issue news releases, bulletins, what's on, and so on, items that you see, they go to all media outlets, including multicultural. They go to the Punjabi media, they go to the Chinese media. We are certainly looking at building much closer and more direct relationships with our Chinese community and Chinese media, given our population, but we treat them all the same and we continue to do that way.
Yeah, reason for this, picking that comment, is just, we need to open up communication, not close it down. And I'm not picking on one or the other. I think we let the people decide what they want to see and do and go on there. So my support, Your Worship, is to increase and expand our communication with the public on all available social media outlets, to be quite frank with you. But
All right,
we'll see what the recommendation is that comes up.
Councillor Au, and then Councillor Galanders has a point. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. Now, I'm not sure about the exact wordings of the proposed motion, but I would, I mean, perhaps, as a supplement, I'd like to propose a motion that we ask staff to identify the gaps with our communication with the public and come back with a recommendation on how we can widen up our communication strategy.
All right, Councillor Galanders, you had an additional point? Or something?
Sure, I think so. I think we did a motion for staff to increase our engagement a little while ago. But regarding the engagement that we're talking about here, this huge following that we say we have, I'm seeing that the engagement we have on Blue Sky, for example, is almost the same as it is on Twitter. It's really on X. There's a few hundred people are seeing the posts and that's it. So I don't know how much we're reaching people. But I would like staff to analyze that. And I think we have to actively try to increase our following on Blue Sky and other platforms. The only reason I'm mentioning Blue Sky is because it's the only other one that I know of that functions like X does in regards to sharing news and that type of engagement. If there's another one that I don't know about, that's fine, but this is a rapidly growing one, so I think it would be the next big player of these types of tools that we have to use. We have to use, yes, all the social media that we can. We no longer have our newspaper going to the door. We've all talked about this, that we all want to increase our reach. We want to increase transparency and we want to increase engagement. Let's talk isn't good enough. And what I'm saying is that a lot of people have left X. So there's been a mass exodus of people that do not want to support this platform. And just by being on the platform is supporting the platform, even though we don't pay for advertising, because the more followers that there are, the more advertising they are going to get. So people have left and they're not on it anymore. And we're not posting on Blue Sky as regularly as we are on X. Like I said, I just did a little analysis and in just 12 days, we posted on X every single day and we only posted 5 times on Blue Sky. There was a number of announcements about parks and events and city activities and things that did not get on Blue Sky. So the people that have taken a stand and that have canceled their X accounts are not getting the city information. So my motion, yes, I did say take steps towards removal of the X account, but if you read the detail of it, it was not remove it right away. Let's take steps towards using it less, using the other ones more, or just using the other ones more. That's fine. And then report back on progress, because what I'm telling you from my own experience is I just put an effort into it. In just a couple of days, I reached out to get some more followers and I gained thousands of followers in just a few days. And so for the city to only have 178 followers, it hasn't taken the necessary steps to expand the reach. So that's what I would like us to do. And, the news sites need to have a Blue Sky button on the bottom for sharing articles instead of just an X button. So I hope that that's something that they do too, to make it more easy to also share on Blue Sky and other platforms if there are some. So I'm hoping that this motion encompasses what everybody was saying. We're not going to decrease our reach. We're only going to expand it by doing this. We're we're analyzing the actual Richmond engagement on X. So let's put a survey out there. Do you live in Richmond? Are you getting these posts? Do you want us to continue posting on here? Do you know we have a Blue Sky account? We could do some things like that to actually analyze what Richmond engagement we have, because I don't see that we have very much. And then let's increase it on Blue Sky and take some real steps to increase it and report back on, these other platforms might be better than Blue Sky or whatever, that could be part of it. But report back, let us know how it's going. Let us know how the engagement is going. And if we think that we can post regularly on on something other than X and get just as much reach. Because I think it's important that we stop just supporting this person's business in these times as the only way of sharing news.
All right, all right. The motion is, but I'm not going to move the motion, I'm going to move a referral. What Councillor Glanders has said is staff analyzed the actual Richmond engagement on X and that staff actually increased following on Blue Sky and post on Blue Sky as regularly as X. My suggestion is simple, that we refer to staff to analyze the city use of various social media platforms and report back with recommendations. Okay, so that's moved and seconded. Councillor Hobbs.
Yeah, I will really try to keep it brief. I think the whole point, we've heard it from people, is to maximize our communication and our interaction with citizens in Richmond. And so we have to do what works for them. We have to go to where the people are. And that might mean using a variety of platforms, as has been mentioned. So I support looking at that. X, Facebook, Blue Sky, whatever it is. The market, and was mentioned by Councillor McNulty, I think the market will determine what platforms are worth using for us. I just think we have to use as many as we have to. And I'm happy with the rewording of what you put forward, Your Worship, because it doesn't predetermine what we're going to do. It analyzes what we should do, and so I will support that. But it is really important that we just go to where the people are as much as possible and communicate as effectively as we can. Thank you.
Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thank you. I think that most similar comment that I wanted to make. I think we should look at all available social media and the gaps, as my colleague here across this way said, to look at them and come back and not put any emphasis on how we can use them all. Not just limit to say we're going to pick one or pick two or whatever. We should be out there blasting everything and let the market determine it, if that's the word you want to use, so that people will pick up wherever they come from and whatever reference it is. And I think we're doing, the important thing for us is to communicate. And that's how people do it. So they don't do it with limitations. So I forgot, Your Worship, I think you said several, and I'd like to see that word, all available social media.
I said
platforms.
the various social media platforms.
All right, various, okay, that would mean all then. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to have the motion known and then this referral. In support of kind of both of them, everything around the table, just a couple points I wanted to make. I didn't have any questions at this moment, but clarify first that Councillor Glanders, when she wrote the motion here that kind of came to us, it is in our package. It's just a three-page thing, and it was basically an email to the clerk, and one of the letters from the public was attached. That's why it may just look like there's one person in the community that instigated this, but like Councillor Heed highlighted, there's definitely over a dozen. I can't remember if it's over 15. I have the stack at home. There's no letters that I've received that have told us to completely stay on X and not go on Blue Sky. So there's nothing counter to what's being mentioned and brought forward here today. But there is clear threats to sovereignty from Musk and manipulation of the algorithm and what gets posted on the top of our feed and what notifications get pushed to our phone. And so I definitely see the threat, and that's what the dozen or so letters that we received highlighted, and that they felt it was wrong for the city of Richmond to be using Twitter. And I know we don't just use Twitter, we're everywhere. And I also want to make the comment that we're not a status quo communications department. Council's been involved in growing our communication department and doing more analyzation on the existing social media platforms out there in English and not. So I think we're going in the direction that this referral is already asking us to go, or I thought that having a bit more of like a timeline might put a little bit more of a pressure on followers to jump. I know there's the kind of comparison of like the 10,000 to 175 for X and Blue Sky. That's about 60 times more on X than Blue Sky. I'm just looking at the Richmond News as well. They're about the same rate as us, about 10,000 to about 275 on Blue Sky. And those are like my go-to searches. Those are the stories I want to see when I go to these types of social media accounts of mine is the local news and the discussion and stuff on there. I've like City of Richmond started my account on Twitter in 2011 when it was 140 characters, limiting you to make that sharp comment and not go on and manipulate the news or whatever the threads do these days. And I also just final comment here, want to say that the fact that like I have both of the ones that are being heavily discussed today, but the what gets pushed through my notifications to my phone, it really feels a manipulative part of the platform, where really if somebody were wanting to be involved with the City of Richmond, they could just do what you normally do. You search just that handle and you find the news that way. So both platforms function in the same way. As was mentioned, I value the fact that we are not doing a complete cut of one of them, because it has been proven that that's not a quick way that's not a good way to keep people motivated and engaged and accessing your day-to-day changes at the city. We want people to find the relevant way to get involved, and I think what we have already is good, and staff are already doing this work, so I still will support the referral.
Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Worship. It occurs to me that we have a pretty small communications team. I suspect they've done quite a bit of this work already, so it might be a fairly easy report. It may not be, but presumably they've done a fair bit of analysis on where they are and why they are, or why they are there. I wonder if maybe we should be looking more at things like engagement goals. Are we engaging with enough of the community? Is 10,000 a good number? How is that compared to how many people signed up to our garbage app? How about our emergency app? We have various different platforms where we can disseminate information. So whether or not your garbage is being picked up tomorrow, you sign up for the app, you get it, it's on your phone. You sign up for notices on various different things. You know, if you sign up for swimming lessons, you get other information, that sort of thing. It also occurs to me that we're a bit decentralized. We have various community centers, we have the library, RCMP, so we have different groups who are also disseminating information and how they're disseminating information. So are we looking at creating a policy around this? Is this something we're going to suggest and recommend to the other groups that are involved, the Oval, other things? And to our contractors. So for example, the SPCA is one of our contractors. Are we going to push it out to them and say, well, if our goal is to be somewhere, warning everybody that we're coming out for leash enforcement, pay attention, where are we going to say that? What are we going to do? Because I think our goal is engagement, and I feel like we're a little bit micromanaging this versus just saying what our goal is and expecting staff to either be able to meet it or say why they can't meet it for some reason or another. And I think we should be pulling back a little bit and asking for what we want, not how we want it done.
Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. I actually am good with the motion as it has been rewritten. It gets the job done. It gets us moving in the right direction. But I also agree that we need a referral to analyze everything and really look at where we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. So is it possible to vote on Councillor Galander's motion first and then vote on the referral motion?
No, the referral is on the floor.
That was seconded?
Sorry?
That was seconded?
Yeah, by a number of people.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried with Councillor Liu opposed. All right, brings us to the award of the contract. Grant, anything to add to your report?
No, Your Worship, nothing to add. I'm happy to take any questions.
All right, so it's moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Day, you had some point?
Thank you very
Much for the report, thank you. So it's another $826,000 for this particular contract. Have we ever added up what all of these IT initiatives cost over, say, the last 2 or 3 years?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, yes, actually it's disclosed every year in the operating budget.
Okay.
And so all of these, the total IT spend is inclusive of all the contracts we award and issue every year.
Okay. I realize it costs money to get all this IT equipment and whatnot, but I was just curious if there was just one place we could go. But okay, I'll review that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Okay, we're now adjourned, and I'll call the closed meeting to order. May I have a motion on closure compliance in the agenda?